Hey everybody. So real quick, I just wanted to correct something that I said earlier in my video as far as the whole Monsanto. So even though they are awarding one or two people 78 million and then figuring out what to do with the other cases, it's still a drop in the bucket. Okay. So even if it's not like a total class action type of thing, that the 81 million isn't like going towards the whole lawsuits, all the lawsuits that are out there, even though it's going towards one or two people, it's still a drop in the bucket. Okay. Roundup is like a $2.6 billion industry that, yeah, is obviously going to go under, but Roundup is just one of many products of Monsanto. So even if they have to go and settle all the cases that are out there that would win in court, it's not going to make a dent really in their day-to-day operations. They're still going to come out on top no matter what, and then switch to organic and then make everybody happy and satisfied and whatever, because you're never going to get rid of biotech. It's always going to be around. Okay, always going to be around. So I did a little correction in the heading of the video, but I mean, I'm so used to all these class action lawsuits out there that when they say, oh yeah, we have like 500 people and we're going to award 78 million to a class action lawsuit, I get like a check for $1. I'm like, whatever. So, but really, no, it was that retiree that got awarded the 78 million or 71 million or 81 million. But, I mean, the guy's, going to pass away at some point. Yeah, he might, his relatives may get some of the money and hopefully they invest it wisely. But really, it's still truly not going to make a difference in the bigger scheme of things with Monsanto. Okay. They're still going to be around. Bayer's still going to be around. Nobody's going anywhere. Things will shapeshift and go off and have different names and different things. And it is what it is. Okay. So anyway, so there's that correction. Now we're wondering, okay, so pretend vaccines don't exist. How does disease get created and passed around? So if you don't have vaccines to go and blame, how would then disease? Well, here's the thing. I made an example of coal miners when it comes to tuberculosis. Okay, and that's a specific element that is part of the 120 elements and then part of the 9 million compounds that we're exposed to on a daily basis. And not just because of advanced technology. I mean, you see just even back in the indigenous societies, people die. Okay, when they don't have vaccines, they don't have the modern medicine and the technology and all that stuff, they still die in some of these indigenous populations. Well, what would cause a person to die? Well, whether it's a flower that they ate or where they were exposed to the cattle, because they have to go and take milk from cattle because they're giving milk to their families, or they're butchering a bird, or because we weren't born vegetarians out there. Okay, we were killing animals way back in the caveman days. The Indians, if you want to bring this back to the Indians, people want to do that all the time, make an assertion that Indians were the best way. Yeah, they probably were, but they were eating animals. Animals have parasites. Animals have other types of issues. Humans get exposed to animals, get exposed to their environment. Even without all the modern technology, they still get disease. So back in the 1700s, when they looked at measles and they saw that measles was in the blood, well, you figure out, how does humans get disease? Well, they're exposed to pathogens they can't prevent, because you can't prevent pathogens and you can't prevent healing. So what happens? The body mutates. They don't fix the mutation. And so then disease gets created by somebody who doesn't fix the mutations. And then that disease mutates every generation when you're having children. And that's how evolution happens. Evolution happens from mutations. Okay? So we can't blame the vaccines. We can't blame the vaccines. We have to actually blame mutated people who don't fix their mutations. And they compound the mutations by reproducing children on their mutations, and nobody is fixing the mutations. So these diseases mutate. And then we have to then say, okay, we have a public health crisis. Humanity could get decimated if we don't get ahead of this. And so that's why vaccines are created, but pretend that they're not even around. Just pretend. And that's why I'm saying, these diseases originated from something. It wasn't from biotech. They weren't conspiring to make a disease and decimate humanity. Because believe me, if they wanted you dead, you'd be dead. They're not even trying to make money off you. They are, because you're asking for it. Okay? But you take away biotech, you take away the EPA, the FDA, the CDC, the USDA. And now you're left with being an Indian on the plains back before Christopher Columbus or whoever came and took the land. You go back to the Indian days, they still died. The Indians still contracted some kind of disease and cancer, and then their shamans gave them a bunch of herbs to try to like help alleviate situations. They're taking I don't know, some of these hallucinogenic types of drugs to then have these visions. Okay, that's no different than what we do right now with taking drugs, having visions, ayahuasca. Okay, but they're still dying. I mean, I don't know if you can go look somewhere and figure out the diseases that happen in those Indian populations before the Spanish came on to America, but they still were exposed to all the different elements. You can't get away from this. It's in nature. Though they do have traditions where they teach their kids, well, you shouldn't eat that berry because it's going to kill you. And so that's something that the elders teach the children. That's why the shamans are the ones that were very specialized in what plants and what bark and what things would help their diseases. But really, in the end, they still died. It wasn't like they escaped death, okay, back in the Indian days. So if you really truly want to go and take society back to where the Indian days are, you would be in no different place than you are today. Life wouldn't change for you. But now you don't have people who with thought process to go and then put together the formula to make your life better. Okay? So all these diseases that you're taking these vaccines for were created by someone who was mutated, who did not take care of their body. And it's through no fault of their own. They didn't know. They were ignorant back then. They were ignorant a long time ago. But at least they did the research to figure out, okay, how can we at least stop these diseases from killing someone right off the bat? But then, yeah, I mean, eventually people do die. I mean, the lifespan back in the 1500s, like 35, 40, and then you have the 1700s where they're then studying all the different viruses and bacteria and figuring out what they do. And then they were experimenting on people, yes, but they had to. How else are you going to explore and figure out what these bacteria do to people? How else are you going to know what this parasite does to a person? I don't love it. Nobody loves it, but it has to be done because you want to save your family from Monsanto, right? So we have the EPA and the FDA and the USDA to kind of regulate so you're not getting such poisonous stuff in your food supply, because some people are highly mutated. They wouldn't be able to handle foods that have not been regulated. Even if you go and kill your own food on your farm off grid and you're not doing J juice, you're not buying the salt, you're buying the cabbage, or getting the water, and you're just living off the grid with your cows, you will succumb to a disease. Because first of all, you have mutations you haven't fixed. Second of all, you'll be exposed to all the different diseases that cow and that goat has. And then you have your organic garden that will still have things that are maybe heavy metals that will accumulate because you still have constipation in your body, not so much in your digestive system, but in your lymph nodes. And you're not actively, aggressively, I mean, you're like when you're off grid and you're totally cut off from society, how are you going to get the good salt? Are you going to mine salt in your area of like Illinois? I mean, is there a salt mountain somewhere in Illinois that you can go mine your own salt? Oh no, the off-gridders are going to shoot their asses in the foot. They're going to shoot themselves in the foot by thinking that, oh yeah, I'm going to be an off-gridder, I'm going to be much more healthier. No, actually, they're going to be more pathogenic. Those are the people that are going to be mutating diseases all over the place. That's why the government gets on these off-gridders and these cult compounds, because these people have no idea what the hell they're doing. So if you want to take our society back to, the Indian days, you will have a very shortened lifespan, and you will be full of parasites and cancer and disease and chronic illness. And yeah, you'll have the measles again, and it won't be something that you'll get from a vaccine. You'll get it naturally, okay? You'll get it because there'll be a blood-borne pathogen because you haven't fixed the mutations, but you're still exposed to everything in the environment. Not because of technology, no, because you can't get away from the elements on the earth. You can't. But people think they can live in a bubble. I'll live in some bubble, some Faraday cage or whatever, and they think that that's going to help them when it actually hurts them. So don't look at the vaccines as the actual problem. You bring everything back to the Indian days, they still died and they still ate cattle. And yeah, you can say, oh yeah, I'll be a vegan, vegetarian. Sorry, you haven't fixed the mutations. Our vegans and vegetarians in this society, with all the modern conveniences, are still dying. And they would still die out there back in the Indian days if you didn't eat buffalo. And if you just growed your own vegetables, you will still die because you're not going to find the salt. Okay? But then you're going to be like, oh yeah, well, what other tribe in what other region can we go and trade salt? So then you have all the spice routes and the salt routes. You figure it out, but people aren't as smart as they think they are. They think, oh yeah, the Indians had it better. No, actually, the Indians did what they had to do based upon their knowledge. Now you have more knowledge, use it. Okay? Talk to you later. Bye.